To finish or not to finish? That is the question. In this video, I'm going to show you how to finish knit seams on a sewing machine and explain why I don't always finish my knit seams at all. But you might want to. Hi, I'm Adrienne from Sew PDF. I've been sewing for about 25 years, and for the past 5 years, I've been designing and marketing PDF sewing patterns. My goal is to make sewing easy and fun. So first off, in case you don't already know what it means to finish a seam, when a sewing pattern instructs to finish the seam, this means to lock the seam in place with threads that cover the seam, primarily to prevent fraying. This can be done with loops on a serger, or it can also be done with a zigzag stitch or an overlock stitch on a sewing machine. When it comes to knit fabrics, they don't fray, so finishing the seam on a knit fabric is done solely to make it look more professional. It serves no functional purpose. I have a serger, so when I sew knits, I often use the serger to sew the seam and finish the seam at the same time. Here's what the inside of a garment sewn and finished on a serger looks like. Now I'm going to be real with you here. I'm a busy mom and business owner. And sometimes when I just want to sit down and sew something quickly, I don't want to fuss with changing the thread color on my serger. If it's a dark color and I'm sewing something light, or if there's white on it and I'm sewing something dark, the threads are going to show on the outside, and I don't always want to bother changing the thread, especially if I know that I'm going to be sewing something that does need that thread color soon, even though I use a method that's super quick and easy. And I have linked a video in the description below if you're interested in learning how to change your serger thread really fast. So, being a busy mom that won't take 2 minutes to change my serger thread sometimes, I'm sure it's not going to surprise you that I don't actually finish my knit seams when I sew them on a sewing machine. When it comes to my sewing, I don't exactly live by it's what's on the inside that counts. Nope, sorry. I mean, if it's a complete mess on the inside, that would bother me. But check this out. So this is a comfy tee that I sewed recently, and I did not finish the side seams. I actually didn't finish the shoulder seams either. But apparently, I got out my serger and used that for the neckline. I'm guessing that I probably didn't want the white thread on the serger to show on this dark color on the bottom. But personally, I think this t-shirt looks fine without the finished seams. I mean, sure, it doesn't look store-bought, but if no one's ever going to see the inside and it looks like this on the outside, I don't think anyone's going to be judging me. So, to be totally frank with you here, if you don't have a serger and you're sewing knits on a sewing machine, it's not going to look store-bought, even if you do finish the seams. It will look a little better, but it's not going to look store-bought. You need a serger to do that. Let me show you. So here is a seam that I finished with a zigzag. And so I sewed the seam first with a triple stitch and then sewed the zigzag along the edge to finish it. So clearly this does not look store-bought, but it does look a little better than just leaving it raw. The zigzag is going to be your only option if you have a really basic machine or an older machine that doesn't have the overlock stitch. Now, if you have a more modern machine with the overlock stitch, that's what this looks like here. And this was done at the same time. So both the seam and the overlock was done at the same time. So it's a bit of a time saver over sewing the seam and then finishing it with the zigzag. But if your seam allowance isn't exactly as wide as the stitch, then you're going to have to trim it, which is what I did. I sewed this at the proper seam allowance, and then I trimmed off the fabric that was left on the edge. A serger, in case you're not familiar with that, has a knife that actually cuts off the fabric from the edge as it sews and overlocks the edge. So if you've ever wondered about maybe getting a serger, you should check out my video on what is a serger and how it works, and I've linked that for you right here. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe if you'd like to see more video tutorials like this one.